escalator in there, and this is our opportunity to reset.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stardig.
Thank you, Mayor. I was definitely involved in that process, and I'm not confident that that it was done to the extent it should have been done. In the fact that there may be opportunities to lessen fees, to go back the other direction. I'm not confident in the numbers that the departments gave us. I'm not sure that there was an actual process, because it was a matter of it was so divided into the silos, and they didn't even, in some cases, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't know in some cases which fees they were even responsible for. And so just gathering the fees to consolidate them, because my goal was to run the city like a business and get a schedule of fees posted so people understood what the fees were, so they could question them or come back to council with their concerns. There wasn't any one place, central place for that information. So that was the process that occurred in 2010. And now I think it's important that we go back and revisit it and make sure that those fees are accurate for those folks that are being charged. And if there's some slight adjustments, if there's a further cost, who pays for that? Where does the money come from, Mayor? If it's not coming from the fees from the user, then it comes from the taxpayers. So it's a balancing act that we have to get right. It's very important. There's a large amount of fees. The mayor may be able to give us the number of dollar amount of fees that are collected each year. So it's important that information is accurate in my book. Thank you.
Thank you, and yes, ma'am. If the analysis shows that the fees needed to be adjusted downward, they would be adjusted up.
And Mayor, thank you for saying that, because I suspect that there's some that will be going down. Thank you. And I also asked Mr. Norman if there was an opportunity to create this scope of work, that if there were opportunities to see if there are fees that needed to be eliminated, if there was at that point. But he seemed to indicate that y'all weren't looking at that at this time, but I would recommend that we look at that as well.
We're not looking at it in that way, but as we drill down on individual fees, I'm assuming that, I don't know if there's any instances of that, but I would assume that would come forward if we were also evaluating whether the fees should go down. Thank you. Councilmember Bradford.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. It's encouraging to hear that we are moving forward with some type of study to determine how things are done that impact our citizens. You know, back in 2010, I recall that we advanced the vote one day, one vote, and we raised 100 different fees, and none were eliminated and none were reduced. And I don't recall the discussion back then questioning the veracity of the study that was done. Some of us did vote no. And my question is how many studies are needed? And when I'm reading some data here from Councilmember, looked like Laster's office, raised a question at the agenda briefing concerning the study that's on the table now, the item in chief. The question ascertains, when will the public and council have access to the fee study? And the response was not an affirmative like it should have been. The response was, as the mayor indicated just then, if there is a recommendation to change the fee, then it has to come before council or committee. So that wasn't the question. The question was about the study, whether there's a recommendation to change fees or not. If we're going to pay $88,000 for a study, this councilman wants access to the study, not only if there's a request to increase the fees. So I stand with Councilmember Kubash in question. $88,000 seems like a lot of money to do a study to determine whether we're going to increase fees or not. Some of us know that the fees are going to be increased. In the edict this time also, it indicates that there will be a time and motion study done. The last time that was represented too, that a time and motion study was done for each fee in the 150 different instances. I requested back then, please give me a copy of the time and motion study, some of you all were here then, which supports raising the fees in 100 different instances. I'm still waiting 5 years later for that time and motion study from 5 years ago. So if there's going to be a time and motion study represented this time around, let's let's have a copy of it, because I don't think we just should pay $88,000 to study a process to raise fees. And then when council asks for a copy of the justification, we're told that the time and motion study is done. I believe some fees can be reduced. I believe that some fees can be eliminated. And some fees perhaps should and can be increased. But we ought to see the data and the justification for that. Thank you.